Hey, it's Matt here with another video. It's going to be a rock and roll video on our man Chuck Berry. Now, I'm a big 1950s rock and roll enthusiast. You would know that by watching my videos because I've only done Elvis Presley thus far in terms of shows on 50s rockers. And the reason for that being I have his complete RCA albums, box set, so I could show you all of the individual LP covers on CD. The way that I have Chuck Berry, though, is I have these old Hippo Select, complete chess recordings. So this is volume 1, which, this is the complete 1950s recordings. This is essential for any household. This is the second one from 1960 to 1966. Lesser years, but still incredibly great songs, for the most part. And then I'm not going to be touching upon this one today. Here's his 70s recordings for Chess Records from 1969 to 1974. My video today is only going to be touching upon the albums from 57 through 67, and not even including the live at the Fillmore album with the Steve Miller Band. And to do that, to show you guys the LP covers, I just did what I've done before with some of my punk videos. I just made CDR copies without the CDRs. I just made so this is the original cover, that's the original back LP cover, and I'll go over the albums with you guys like that. But I'm going to use my computer here to read the song titles, because it's like, can't really read that too well. So, Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry's a god, right? Without Chuck Berry, we probably wouldn't even be having this discussion right now. Chuck Berry was a major influence on, Keith Richards is the first guy that came to mind, but when I have a lot of discussions online with people, with fellow, rock enthusiasts such as myself, I'm an Elvis guy. If you look at the if you've ever interacted with me on the Steve Hoffman forums, I have a Elvis Presley, avatar. But a lot of people say Chuck Berry's the king of rock and roll. And, I'm not going to argue, because Chuck Berry wrote, Elvis did not. Chuck Berry played great guitar at that time. Elvis strummed his guitar, there's all kinds of ways. But Elvis had so many more hits than Chuck Berry. But Chuck Berry wrote so many classic songs, and you can never take that away from him. He was on the Chess label, and I'm a huge Chess enthusiast. I love Bo Diddley and Little Walter and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Etta James and, so on and so forth. So Chuck Berry is a major guy for me, and I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, but I just was lazy. I knew I was going to have to Xerox off all these album covers, and I did that this afternoon. So here I am, all ready to go. Let us begin with the one I've already showed you. This is After School Session, 1957. It was the second album, I believe, that Chess ever did. It is a classic, folks. Listen to these songs. School Days, Deep Feeling, Too Much Monkey Business, classic. Wee Wee Hours, classic. Roly Poly, I think that's one of the new songs. In the 50s, guys, when people made these rock and roll records, they were usually, almost always, and this is true for country albums too, collections of 45s, collections of previously released 45s, the A's and the B's, with some new recordings. This is no exception. All right. I want to say Roly Poly is a new recording, but I have to look it up. No Money Down, another classic. Brown Eyed Handsome Man, couldn't be any better, right? Berry Pickin', Together We'll Always Be, Havana Moon, Downbound Train, and Driftin' Heart. I believe Chuck Berry wrote all those songs. So, yeah, this is a classic album. After School Session, 1957, almost reads like a Chuck Berry's greatest hits. In 1958, he averaged about an album a year, and on the years when he released more than one album, I'll bring that to your attention. This is One Dozen Berries, 1958. That was the back of the original LP cover. All right. Let us go and see what's on that album. Okay, Sweet Little 16. That is another completely classic Chuck Berry song. That is the one that Brian Wilson used as the basis for Surfin' Safari, Surfin' USA. Can't remember now, but one of those early classic Beach Boys songs. Blue Feeling, La Wanda, Rockin' Up the Philharmonic is an instrumental. Oh Baby Doll, Guitar Boogie is an instrumental. I'll keep showing you this. Reelin' and Rockin', that's a classic Chuck Berry number. Ingo is an instrumental. Rock and Roll Music, the Beatles covered that in '64, right? How You've Changed, Low Feelin', and It Don't Take But a Few Minutes. Another epic album, maybe not quite as immediate as After School Session, but it's great. It's great. I love it. You can't go wrong with any of these early Chess Chuck Berry albums. All right? They're like primers on how to make great rock and roll albums. All right? And he wrote all those songs. Folks. All right. 1959. Used to see this one in record stores when I was a kid. This is his best album from the 50s. This is Chuck Berry's On Top. I could probably make a case. This is his greatest non-compilation album. I said earlier that After School Session was almost like a Chuck Berry's greatest hits. This is even closer to that definition. Okay, I'll keep this album cover showing you. Almost Grown. Carol. Stones covered that, right? Maybelline. Come on, couldn't be any better. Sweet Little Rock and Roller. Anthony Boy. And Johnny B. Good. That's the first 6 songs all on side 1. Like I said, that's like a Chuck Berry's greatest hits for you. Johnny B. Good is like the rock and roll anthem of the 1950s. Side 2, Little Queenie, Jojo Gunn, Roll Over Beethoven, another Beatles song that they covered, right? Around and Around, the Stones covered that. And then at the end, Hey Pedro and Blues for Hawaiians. I know Blues for Hawaiians was new at the time. I think all the rest of the songs, maybe except for one other one, were released as 45s. It's as close to perfection as he ever got on one of his albums. Chuck Berry is On Top. Should be in your collection, folks. Okay, that's it for Chuck in the 1950s on the Chess label. We're moving in the 1960s now. He's still averaging 1 album a year. This is Rockin' at the Hops, 1960. Another damn good album, as I'm about to show you guys. Okay, this is still, mostly previously released stuff. Bye Bye Johnny, Worried Life Blues, the Big Maceo Merriweather number. Down the Road a Piece, which I always think that he wrote that, but he did not. It sounds like a Chuck Berry number. It's not. It's an old Don Ray tune from the 40s, I believe. Stones covered that one too. Confessin' the Blues, he didn't write that one either. Stones covered that one as well. Too Poop to Pop and Mad Lad. So it's another virtually classic side 1. Side 2 has I Gotta Find My Baby, Betty Jean, that's a good one. Childhood Sweetheart, Broken Arrow, used that title years before Neil Young did. Driftin' Blues and the immortal Let It Rock, another Stones number. So there you go. Rockin' at the Hops, great album for 1960. Okay, this is the last album he'd make without any legal troubles for a while. We'll get into that in a second. All right, 1961, new jukebox hits. He was starting to have trouble at this point with, he had transported that underage girl across state lines. That violates the Mann Act. It would result in him being in jail for like 20 months. But that was all happening, but he wasn't in jail yet when this album was being made. It's still great though. I'm talking about You. Again, Stones did that one as well. Diploma for Two, 13 Question Method is one of my favorite early 60s Chuck Berry numbers. Away From You, Don't You Lie to Me. He didn't write that one. The Way It Was Before, Little Star, Route 66. The old Bobby Troop song. The Stones based their version on this version, though, because it sounds almost exactly like the way that Chuck had arranged it. Sweet 16, that's the B.B. King song, not the Sweet Little 61 that he already done. Run Around, Stop and Listen, and then he did Little Richard's Rip It Up. So it's still a really good record. You know, still classic Chuck in the early 60s on the Chess label. And, you know, obviously the Rolling Stones were still taking notes. All right? Okay. So he does have that issue with the girl. He is in jail. While he's in jail, this Chuck Berry on Stage, which is his first live album, which is not live. I've done many shows where I've shown you guys 60s live albums, and they're not live. They're just, you know, studio recordings with, excuse me, with fake audience noise applied. That's what this is. That's what Chuck Berry on Stage is. I don't recommend it. He didn't do a great, excuse me, folks. He didn't do a great live album during this whole tenure. So, you know, get it if you're a completist. It came out in 1963, but it's not really worth. One thing I will tell you guys about, though. Well, I can't read it. Let me go to. He had released a greatest hits album in between the last two records and this, or the last one that was called Chuck Berry Twist. Okay, this is Chuck Berry on Stage. There's Surfin' Steel, which is an instrumental. There's Surfin' USA, which he put that on here because, you know, that's the song that Brian Wilson based Sweet Little 16 on. So, you know, when he was in jail, the British invasion had discovered him, i.e. the Rolling Stones and the Beatles covered his songs, and the Beach Boys had done, you know, that number. So he felt kind of relevant again when he came out, and you're going to see it's going to involve some better material, but not right away. But yeah, no, I can't really recommend this album all that much. All right. In 64, the year of the British invasion, we have two great guitars. He does this album with Bo Diddley. I wish it was better. You know, it's got some long, let me just get to the tracks. Liverpool Drive is a Chuck Berry song, but then it goes into Chuck's Beat, which is over 10 minutes, and he's just kind of jamming with Bo Diddley. Side 2 is When the Saints Go Marching In, which is something that Bo Diddley brought to the project. He didn't write it. And then there's Bo's Beat, which is another even longer epic jam at 14 minutes. It's fine to have on like as background music, but you know, with such luminaries, one wished that the album were better. But there you go. Two great guitars, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley. Okay, his next album, St. Louis to Liverpool, I do have a CD of because Mobile Fidelity did it. Now this is a great album. I told you guys what his best album was from the 50s. This is his best album from the 60s, easily. St. Louis to Liverpool, and as an added bonus, they even give you Chuck Berry's on top. Yeah. So you get Chuck Berry's on top, and you get St. Louis to Liverpool. Again, easier just to read them on my computer. Okay, side 1's classic. Little Marie, Our Little Rendezvous, No Particular Place to Go, that was a hit. U2, Promised Land. Yeah, that's right, he wrote that. Remember later on, Elvis had a hit with that. You Never Can Tell, another hit. You know, so that's all of side 1. Side 2, Go Bobby Soxer, Things I Used to Do, the Eddie Jones number. Liverpool Drive, which is an instrumental, and a better instrumental than the ones that were on the album with Bo Diddley. Night Beat is an instrumental. Another version of Merry Christmas Baby, but he always did that song well. And then Brenda Lee. It is a great album, and perhaps the last album of this caliber he would ever do. There's good songs on virtually any Chuck Berry album, especially on the Chess label, even in the early 70s. But this is the last time he would fully essay an album that I can recommend. All right? Okay. Next is Chuck Berry in London. He did not record this whole thing in England, despite what it says there. I think 8 songs were, so Wikipedia says anyway. It's not bad, you know. I mean, what I got on here? Little Marie again, right? Wasn't that on the last album too? A Little Rendezvous, No Particular Place to Go. Yeah, these were. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm still reading St. Louis to Liverpool. That's why those songs were on the last album. I was gonna say, all right, Chuck Berry in London. This is another Chess album. Okay, don't really recognize to me these song titles. My Little Love Light, She Once Was Mine, After It's Over, I Got a Booking, Night Beat, His Daughter Caroline, who came a long way from St. Louis. He didn't write that one. That was side 1. Side 2, St. Louis Blues. He didn't write that one either. Jamaica Farewell, not his song. Dear Dad, I know that one. Butterscotch, I know that one too. The Song of My Love, Why Should We End It This Way, and I Want to Be Your Driver, which is based on Me and My Chauffeur by Memphis Minnie, that Jefferson Airplane would cover the next year. And it's got that beat, that riff that Bob Dylan would use on one of those songs on Blonde on Blonde. So that's I Want to Be Your Driver, one of the more interesting tracks on here. It's the last number. Does that justify the whole album? Well, you tell me. All right. Fresh Berries. This is his second album of 1965, the way that he released 2 albums in 64. So he's cranking them out now. He's about to leave, of course, Chess Records. Kind of a cool cover there, Fresh Berries. Okay, unfortunately, this is not one of his better Chess albums. It Wasn't Me, Run Joe, which is an old Louis Jordan number. Every Day We Rock and Roll, One for My Baby, the one that's the same number that Sinatra sang. Welcome Back, Pretty Baby, It's My Own Business. That's side 1. Side 2, Right Off Rampart Street, Vaya con Dios. He didn't write that one. Merrily We Rock and Roll, My Mustang Forward. Driving a Mustang, I do know that song. Ain't That Just Like a Woman, which is, right, the next year, Bob Dylan would have Just Like a Woman. And Wee Hour Blues, no Chuck Berry classics, but still fairly solid. You know, I mean, he would not make a lousy album during his first tenure with Chess. Okay. After that, he decides he's not happy at Chess anymore. Knowing Chuck, it was probably some kind of monetary concerns. He signs with Mercury for the rest of the 60s. It's not his best time. I don't have any of those Mercury recordings, on all of these Chess boxes, but when Bear Family did the complete Chuck Berry, I had a friend of mine burn me all of the Mercury stuff because I'd never heard it, or at least not all of it. And I'm not too really impressed with any of those albums. There's some good stuff, though. Like I said, any Chuck Berry album has a good song or two. So I only printed out the first one for you, Chuck Berry in Memphis. It's okay. I mean, let me go to... Oh, and before this, there was Chuck Berry's Golden Hits, which was his first album on the Mercury label, which is just him re-recording his old Chess stuff with one new song, Club Nitty Gritty, which wasn't even that new. You know what I mean? Anyways, Chuck Berry in Memphis. He did re-record some Chess stuff on here too, and he added horns. That was like a thing for him. I remember when I was in college at San Diego State in the 80s, I was taking a Bob Dylan course, and there's a guy named Professor Wheeler, and he was good at analyzing Dylan's lyrics, but he played a Chuck Berry number one night, and it had horns on it, and I pointed that out to him, that it was not the Chess recording, and he didn't know that. And this other guy next to me said something like, well, maybe, God, what did he say? He goes, there hadn't been horns on that number before because nobody had the talent to put the horns on there. Takes all types, huh? Okay, so anyways, on this album, Back to Memphis, I Do Really Love You, Ramblin' Rose, he didn't write that one. He re-recorded Sweet Little Rock and Roller. I wonder if that's the one that Professor Wheeler played. My Heart Will Always Belong to You. Oh Baby Doll. That's another re-recording. Check Me Out. It Hurts Me Too. It's probably the Hank Williams number, but he didn't write that one either. Bring Another Drink. So Long. Good Night. Well, It's Time to Go. And Flying Home. None of those are great tracks, folks. So Chuck Berry and Memphis probably no better than, Fresh Berries. Maybe not even as good. The one he did, I thought about Xeroxing this off to show you guys. The next album he did was with the Steve Miller Band at the Fillmore. And if memory serves, there's no mention of the Steve Miller Band on the album, but because it's 67, the same year as Chuck Berry in Memphis. And, the next year, Steve Miller would start his career. But it's the same band, I think. I know Tim Davis is on the album, as would make the Children of the Future record. But I wish I could say it was better. You think, wow, Chuck Berry playing the Fillmore with the Steve Miller Band backing him up? It was going to be great, right? It's all right. It's all right. So anyways, I'm going to stop here. He finished out his tenure with Mercury in the 60s, went back to Chess in the early 70s, stopped with them, I think, in the mid-70s, did another album called Rocket, I think, in 79, which I've never heard. That's the only Chuck Berry album I've never heard. And then I don't think he recorded any albums anyway until he died, which is not that long ago. So Chuck Berry was a god, Yeah, he had issues. We all know the stories of him in that Berry amusement park, having cameras in the women's bathrooms and stuff. It's best not to go over that. I always say, folks, trust the art, not the artist, right? And Chuck Berry gave us lasting art, which has made my life better. So I'm a fan. Hope you are too. That was a quick run through of his albums from 57 through 67. Matt, signing off.